Let me start sharing. Okay, so on the left-hand side is my book, Ethics and Privacy, and on the right-hand side is my PowerPoint. Okay, so those are the learning objectives. Now moving on to slide number 3, which is the chapter outline, which talks about ethical issues and privacy. First of all, it opens up with a case. Boston Red Sox use Apple Watches to steal signs. Okay. This is a bit, I mean, it's not too much reading, but how about if we set aside 5 minutes and I would let you, each one of you, to read this case in your book right at the beginning of chapter 3, the opening case. So what do you guys think about question number 1 under the case? Discuss the ethicality and legality of the Red Sox action in stealing signs. Is this ethical?
No, didn't it say that it was illegal to use digital stuff anyway?
I mean, it was the first case of its kind.
Oh, it was,
It
that was
never,
the first
this
one.
was
So
never
after-
been done before.
Okay,
However, it is prohibited under beyond their eyes ruling. But since it was going on for a long time, this practice of stealing signs has gone on for some time, but never with electronic device. However, is this ethical? Is it ethical to do that? Forget about even if it's not legal or legal. We're not even talking about that yet. It's not. It's not ethical. Just because everybody is doing it, or just because people can get away doing it, doesn't give you the right to do it. Okay, that's one thing, you know. A lot of the time people say, well, what if, like, everybody does it? What if I did it? What's the big deal, right? And the answer is, just because a lot of people are doing wrong, that doesn't make it right. If you go into places where everybody is in a gang and trying to hurt each other, that doesn't make hurting each other right. Or just because it's a norm doesn't make it right. So that's why the second question, if you look at it, it talks about the fundamental tenets of ethics include 3 things: responsibility, accountability, and liability. 3 things. Okay. Did somebody took the responsibility that, yes, we did it and we did it wrong? Did somebody admit it to it? Do we see that happening here? Who did that? Who took the responsibility? And where did they take that responsibility? In the game? Outside of the game? Or when they were questioned? In whose office?
after, they were caught in the office.
In the commissioner's office. So they took the responsibility. So first tenant was hit. What about the accountability? Who would be included in the accountability? Will trainer be included in the accountability? Will the general manager be included in the accountability because he was responsible, as he was aware of these practices and techniques that are getting used in the games?
Probably all participating and all managerial parties.
Exactly, exactly. So in terms of liability, given it was the first offense, the punishment was not severe. However, it was also made clear that any repeat offenses or any future offenses from any parties will not be tolerated. So that basically is just one example. And this happened in last 20 years, right? Very recently compared to, because, you know, these watches have not been around in a long time, maybe in the last 10 years. Okay. So when the chapter opens up, it talks about ethical issues. Ethics has a framework, just like anything. It's basically a set of rules by which the ethics is governed. Ethics doesn't have any particular definition that will bound the entire humanity together. Ethics is not a norm across the globe. It is possible that as an American, something is ethical for us and may not be ethical for somebody from Russia. Somebody from China will find something ethical that somebody from Canada will not find ethical. It's basically the principles by which people are governed, rules, norms, whatever it is. So, would you think that certain symbols and signs or body language signs, would that fall under ethics at any place or no?
Yeah,
Like, for example, the victory sign may mean something bad in some places and would mean victory in the other places. Would that fall under ethics or legality?
Ethics?
It's hard to say. What if it's a rule over there? If it's a ruling, it's a legality matter. If it's not a ruling, then it could be ethical matter. Some ethics have made themselves into laws. Okay. Some ethical things are not laws. And in fact, laws are against them. Because sometimes what happens, laws are sometimes governed very differently than ethics. Because laws could be looking at greater good versus individual good. Okay, just because there are no cops around, I could just go and rob every store in downtown Kenosha. No, so that's exactly, I mean, sometimes we break both tenets, sometimes we break one of the two or the two tenets. So ethics in a corporate environment also has its role, and ethics in an IT also has its role. So the principles of right and wrong that individuals use to make choices that guide their behavior. And since individuals are brought up under different cultural umbrellas, they may have the sense of right and wrong or right from one another, different from one another, I should say. Now, for example, is it ethical to take somebody else's work and use it without their permission, even though it's licensed? Forget about legality. And I'll say no. But some people will be like, what is that? Who pays for licensing fees? There are countries out there where most of them are running stuff on, what do you call them? Pirated softwares, right? I mean, you go out places, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
Got a question for you.
Mhm.
So, what if the software wasn't being made anymore? Like sold anymore?
See, if the software is not sold anymore, but is the company around?
Yeah.
So it's a company question, because do they still own right to that?
it
Okay,
definitely
just
depends
because-
on where the copyright's at. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because Macromedia stopped making a certain piece of software that they were making 12 years ago, that doesn't mean now you can legally distribute it without the permission and consent.
Netscape.
Okay.
It was so great when it came out, and then it became so bad.
So yeah, that's why we have open source. You can go the open source route. Open source, the biggest advantage of having an open source is that you do not, for fair share use, you do not need to go into the licensing stuff. In fact, people take the open source and they build their own stuff out of it, and then they can sell that stuff because their piece, what they worked on it, that's what they're charging the money for. That's why Linux laptops are so much cheaper than Windows laptops, because of the licensing fees that goes into play. Because when you purchase a Windows-based laptop with the same config as a Linux laptop, the Windows charges a licensing fee per software that they have given on that computer. Okay, nothing is free. You know, people think that, oh, I have Microsoft Windows and I got Edge for free. No, the cost for Edge is part of the licensing fee for Windows. The cost for Notepad is part of the licensing fee for Windows. Each and everything has its own little piece out of that fee that you're paying for. It's not free. Some software you download for free, but here's the trick. They tell you it's a free download. Okay, so after you download, they say, okay, the download is free. Now you can use it for free for 7 days. Okay, using and downloading are two different things. So that's why, you know, there are apps in the App Store that you can download for free. But once you download, then they start asking for money after X amount of time period or right away. So that's the thing, you know, people still go for the word free. And that's what these companies bank on. So 4 widely used standards when it comes to ethic framework are discussed here on slide 8. Oh, sorry, slide 7. Utilitarian approach, rights approach, fairness approach, and common approach. Okay, I will let you read those 4 paragraphs in the book under the ethical frameworks. All 4 of them are listed in 4 paragraphs.
I was wondering, could you zoom in on the book?
Now, is that legal or is that ethical? You didn't get the book yet, Dars? It's week 3 now.
Oh, I have the book. I just usually just kind of just look on your screen.
Okay, it looks better on my end. Because if I zoom too much, since I'm using half the screen, it just goes like this.
Huh.
Okay, so that's why I can't really zoom in too much. So just wanted to confirm that we are missing Malcolm Hawkins and the other person I know is not here. Okay, so everybody else I've marked present, who arrived late or were here from the beginning. So these 5 approaches could then be interconnected with each other. And we could have a framework that comprises of multiple items. So we can combine the 5 standards to create a framework for ethical decisions. 5 steps in ethical decision making framework includes recognize an ethical issue, then get the facts, evaluate alternative actions, make a decision or make decisions and test it, and act and reflect on the outcome of decisions. These are the 5 steps that are talked about next. Under the recognize an ethical issue include, could this decision or situation damage someone or some group? Does this decision involve a choice between a good and a bad alternative, and so on and so forth? Getting the facts include, what are the relevant facts? Do I have sufficient information? Which individuals or group have an important stake in the outcome? Then evaluate, which could include which options will produce the most good, which option best respects the rights of all stakeholders, and so on and so forth. Finally, considering all approaches, which option best addresses the situation will fall under, make a decision and test it. And finally, act and reflect on the outcome of your decision would include, how can I implement my decision with the greatest care and attention to the concerns of all stakeholders, and so on and so forth. So again, not an easy topic, not an easy decision that can be made. And as the opening case talked about, that ethics has 3 tenets: responsibility, accountability, and liability. Responsibility means that you accept the consequences of your decision and actions. Accountability refers to determining who is responsible for actions that were taken. And liability is a legal concept that gives individuals the right to recover the damages done to them by other individuals, organizations, or systems. Okay, so who is liable, who is accountable, and who is responsible? 3 different words that we use in our daily life, but in the court of law have some meanings as well. Before we go any further, it is critical that you recognize that what is unethical is not necessarily illegal, as we talked about before. Okay. Now, moving down to a problem that the book talks about, which revolves around finance and account. Okay. And again, I will let you read this. All the way down to right above Google links, online search data, and offline purchase data. So read these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. Okay. So for those of you who are done reading these paragraphs, can move on to the It's About Business 3.1, Google links, online search data, and offline purchase data. And then we will discuss about that. I know it's a little bit longer than the opening case. Please give me a green check when you guys are done reading this Google link search, online search data. And for those of you, as you start getting done, move on to table 3.1, which is if you scroll down just a little bit or go to page number maybe 76 in your books, that's where you will find table 7.3.1 with framework for ethical issues. So go over each one of these issues and the questions under that. In the meanwhile, the rest of the people will also be done. Then I have breakout room activities for you guys. So move on to framework for ethical issues. And those of you who are still reading, as you get done, please give me a green check. So in a minute or so, let me post that question that I want you to discuss in the breakout rooms. So the question is posted in the chat. This is the question about the case that you read about Google, or you're about to finish reading. Google links online search data and offline purchase data. This is the question number 2 from the questions list at the bottom of the case. I just copied and pasted from there. And for 10 minutes, you will be in your breakout room discussing different aspects of this. And it's up to you. If you have a microphone, you can discuss using microphone or however you guys decide. Most of the groups have 3 people, except for one group, which has 2. So I'm opening your rooms now, and you can join your rooms. Okay. So when they're in business to make money, they will do whatever it takes to make money, and some of them will do whatever it takes to money until they get caught. And then they have these multi-million-dollar lawyers that they will put in the forefront to drag the case. I mean, it's a whole monopoly. You can't fight it.
You
It's
know what?
just- Say again, Dar?
I've always wondered, who are these lawyers that they get? Because apparently, like, they're so good they can drag out a case for like a decade.
Well, that's what they get paid for. These are not just the law firms, these are the lawyers on their payroll that actually work for them. And I mean, all of these major corporations have these, I mean, like, they don't have just one lawyer, they have a team of lawyers. Or they have this entire top-notch organization which hires top-notch lawyers. And that's what they get paid for. Have you ever attended any jury duty?
No, not yet.
Okay. Anybody over here? Can you give me a green check if you've ever attended a jury duty? Not to disclose any information, but just wanted to ask.
Have you attended a jury duty?
I did. That's what I want to talk about next. I just wanted to see if anybody has had experience. You know, my experience was a crazy one. It wasn't a good thing to be in the room with somebody who killed 4 people. Okay. And the whole gang was busted by a cop, you know, and somebody from the intelligence. And it was, anyway, long story short, when one side, when the lawyer from the police side, he started the case, and I was like, oh my God, you know, there's no way this guy can get away from what he did. I had my mind made up. And then when the other lawyer got up and he brought a few pointers on the table, that was like, wow, that's a total game changer. You know, they flipped things around a lot with what ifs and scenarios and background information and blah, blah, this clause, that clause, this subclause. You know, they did this and this particular law protects them against this. I mean, it's like, oh my God, really? Yep. That's what they get paid to do.
I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that they literally just pay the court just to push it back another date, like companies, if they get sued. And they just keep doing that to the point where you know, so basically they bleed you dry, and they have all the money they can in the world to do that.
That probably certainly could be possible because they have all the money in the world and they can bleed you, of course, in that regard. And yes, certainly, I don't know, I don't have any personal evidences on that particular thing, but I'm pretty sure that they can do that to an extent where they can drag it and keep pushing. And legally they do it. They do it legally by extending deadlines, by taking more court dates or buying more time to gather more evidences. They will just send in these papers to the judge and said, you know, we have a very good link. However, we need more time. And then here you go. You know, there are so many cases pending. There you go. You get another 10 days. You get another 15 days, whatever. I don't know. The big cities, judges are far more busier. And in some countries, you know, because of the corruption, the cases are already solved outside the court. It's just like they just do the court proceedings to just make it legal. Anyway, they have made their mind to decide in whose favor they want to swing. So it's, yeah, it's just a totally different kind of a business out there. Unfortunately, but yeah. The good difference between lawyers and doctors is that lawyers have to snatch their money because, and every time you're on call with them, you're paying them by minute or 15 minutes or half hour and stuff like that.
Yeah, it feels like you're being robbed.
So yeah. Anyway, so that was just one particular aspect of ethics. Now we'll move on to the next thing in this chapter. I know it's, to me, I don't know about you, but I think this is an interesting class. This class itself. I don't get to teach this class very often, but I don't know why most instructors don't want to teach this class because they think it's boring. I said, no, how is it possible? This is such an interesting class. Give me all the sections. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about you, but I find this particular course very interesting. It just opens up so many different aspects of business life. Now, moving on to the privacy factor. The privacy itself is defined as the right to be left alone and to be free of unreasonable personal intrusions. That's definition of privacy in general. But when it comes to information privacy, it takes a slightly different turn and says, okay, it is the right to determine when and to what extent information about you can gather and you can communicate out to others. One of these clauses that usually people miss is, let's say, when Target is collecting your information and says, we will not share this information outside of the company. And people are of the view, okay, that's fine. So it stays in the Target, right? The problem is Target also has sister companies that operate under Target, and then they can share your information with them because they're covered under the clause that the information will not leave the target group of companies or whatever, you know? So sometimes companies would do that as well. So you're getting calls from these crazy places that you've never heard of because they're all operating under that one big umbrella.
Yeah, it's like not Target, but Target is one name underneath the parent company.
Yep. Or Target itself has smaller branches. For example, who runs the pharmacies at Target?
CVS.
Exactly. Who is a new partner of Target when it comes to the women makeup? Ulta. Target is giving space to Ulta to do business on their facility right within Target. Okay. Who is serving their cafeteria needs? Starbucks. Okay, you go to Walmart and Walmart looks like a little strip mall. You know, you enter into the Walmart, there's an eyeglass shop, right? There's a nails shop, there's a Subway. Somewhere around January through April, they have some kind of taxation stuff going on right within Walmart. I'm like, really? What are you doing?
You go to the one by Menards?
No, well, no, that's in Racine. There is a
Because
Walmart.
that is
Yeah, there is another Walmart in Kenosha. It's on Green Bay, next to Sam's Club. And that Walmart is now getting hidden behind stores because they've opened so many stores in the storefront. There is like Dunkin' Donuts, there's Taco Bell, I don't know, Popeyes. I mean, like you name it, they're just opening so many different things right at the front of that. You know, just Kenosha is going crazy. Gas station, right? There's this huge Quick Trip right there next to Festival Foods. That's the new stuff that came in the last 5 years over there. I mean, they're like 4 or 5 24/7 stores in Kenosha. It's unbelievable. You got Myers, you got Festival Foods, you got Woodman's, you got Walmart. I mean, like, then there are stores that are open to a little bit later and open early in the morning, like Pick and Save. It's just, yeah. There used to be one more place in Kenosha that's closed 20 years ago or 18 years ago called Century Foods. So, yeah. Anyway, so moving on to the privacy. So privacy can be interpreted quite broadly. However, court decisions in many countries have followed 2 rules fairly closely. The right of privacy is not absolute. Privacy must be balanced against the needs of society. The public's right to know supersedes the individual rights of privacy. So those 2 rules illustrate to some extent how far you can stretch privacy, okay? You know where the problem comes in? I, as an American business, go and start doing business in Canada. Okay. Now, we are very close culturally to some extent, and at the same time, we are so far away from each other, okay? Now, there is an influence of American culture on the neighboring countries and globally as well, but more on the neighboring countries, especially those people who live on the bordering towns in Canada. And they have a lot of Americans going in, a lot of Canadians coming to America. They work here, they live there. You know, that kind of stuff is also good. If you ever go to the Canadian border, you will see people with the special cards that they don't have to be in line and be checked every time because they're daily commuters. They work in Michigan and they live in, let's say, London, Ontario. So those kind of people, we have those kind of people as well who get a little bit exposed to the culture. But anyway, the bottom line is when you go there, Canadians have a different mindset. They don't think like the Americans do. As a result, Target went to Canada and failed miserably in 2 years and had to roll back the entire business plan and come back. Okay. Now you go to Canada, all the major stores have their logos in red and white. I mean, like, how nationalistic can you get? Everything has the word Canada in it. I mean, there's this place in Canada when I first went there called Canadian Tires. I thought it was probably a tire place, but it was the size of Walmart. And it is their Walmart. Just called it Canadian Tires. I'm like, wow. So different people, different mindset, different culture, different norms. So when you go out and try to gain their attention, may or may not work the American way, okay? So it's more to Canada than saying A at the beginning of every sentence, right? or playing ice hockey. And I was teasing my Canadian nieces, and I'm like, you know what? You guys are so good at only one sports because you guys are covered in snow all year round. Majority of your country has nothing but ice and snow. But anyway, so I mean, how often do you see places in America where if you go out shopping, right in the parking lot, you would have the battery chargers. If you don't plug in your battery while you're going out shopping, your car will be dead because it's so cold out there.
We used to have a plug-in in our garage when we lived up north, so it was a bit cold. The winters would get very cold.
Okay, so that's how most of the Canada is. So anyway, so here we talk about going down the electronic surveillance, the very first topic in the list, the electronic surveillance. According to American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, tracking people's activities with the aid of information technology has become a major privacy-related problem. A lot of the businesses have cameras installed everywhere. How much and where, how much data you want to collect, how much you want to store, where, what spots, what information, all of that information. I remember many years back, IBM, which is one of the major producers of such smart tools, was given a task by a school system because of the vandalism that we need to figure out who in the world is doing these vandalisms in school properties, because most of these kids wear hoodies like Ethan is wearing right now. So they notice that these guys, by the time they hit the camera, they're wearing a hoodie. You can't really figure out who did it. So they made this software that would be able to sync the cameras and be able to extract a video, provided you give one individual. So you said, okay, track this guy. So all cameras are tracking that guy. And all the pieces of that person, as this person is walking through the school property, are taken and are put together in the form of a video. And here you have a video of this one person. And it could go back and forth. So if you find a person and one of the later cameras that, okay, this is the guy who's spray painting the wall, you take that snap and you give it out to the system, and we'll coordinate with the other cameras to see, okay, where was this person like 15 seconds ago? 15 seconds ago, 10 seconds. So where, how did he enter? She entered. Where did they put on their hood and stuff? So they were able to track the individual who was doing this, because they had one snapshot of that person pre-hoodie. So things of that nature. How much is, and that was, I'm talking, this was like 15 years ago when IBM, I was with some IBMers who brought that case and said, this is what we did in a recent development on one of the tools that we had been working with last year. So this is what I'm talking to you right now, this happened somewhere in 2007, 2006. It's not recent stuff. So think about what they are capable of doing now in the name of surveillance. So smartphones have gone much farther than they would. Everybody, every time, you have so many TikTokers out there, Instagram people, I mean, that they post their videos with their phones on, their video taping cops, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's just like whole 9 yards. It's unbelievable, the amount of information that goes out there. GPS, global positioning system sensors, almost all smart devices have them. All smart cars have them. All cars have them that are navigation capable. There are a lot of business facilities that have face recognition systems. Otherwise, you can't really enter the facility. So here we have the rapidly increasing use of facial recognition technologies in China is causing much concern as the Chinese government plans to implement its social credit score by 2020. Now, this is a bit like a couple of years ago. In this system, every citizen in China will be given a score that, as a matter of public record, will be available for all to see. The score comes from monitoring an individual's social behavior from their spending habits and how regularly they pay their bills to their social interactions. Now, all this data about one individual, here you go, you got a digital profile on that person. How easy it is to now figure out their psychological behaviors, their personal behaviors, their norms, where they go, where they shop. I mean, like in a year, you know them inside out. I was in a meeting with somebody who worked for a pharmaceutical company. He was an IT guy. He said the information that I'm about to tell you, even my reps don't know. So what we do is we load these pharmaceutical reps with an application. And the application includes the information about the drugs, their uses, their misuses, their cost, their pricing, the whole 9 yards. So these reps go into the doctor's office and now they're presenting that using this app on their tablet. Each and every slide has a time recorder on it. And the database keeps track of which doctor's office are they visiting. Behind the scene, it is now gathering information as to which doctor spends more time on which slide. Is he more concerned about the costs? Is he most concerned about the side effects? Is he more concerned about the brand? What is his more, where did he spend the most amount of time? Where did she spend the most amount of time? And the rep doesn't know it, the doc doesn't know it, they collect this information. And they use this information in their favor as to how next time I can approach this person. What interests this person, okay? On the other hand, we have these pharmaceutical reps that go out on the social media to create a digital profile for each and every doctor that they will be visiting to figure out their likes and dislikes and interests. And here you go, here's a pharmaceutical rep sliding in 2 tickets to the next baseball game. Because they figured it out, this is the team this guy likes. That kind of stuff. So the information gets collected one way or the other, and it's used. And that's where the data analytics comes in, the data sciences comes in, okay? Now let's move on to personal information in the databases. Look at these questions on page 81. Personal information. There are several concerns about the information you provide to these record keepers, whoever they are, your cable companies, your mortgage companies, your employers, to hospitals, to banks, to universities. Doesn't matter, IRS, anybody. Do you know where the records are? Are the records accurate? Can you change the inaccurate data? How long will it take to make a change? Under what circumstances will the personal data be released? How are the data used? To whom are the data given or sold? And how secure are the data against access by unauthorized people? All of these questions, majority of us don't even think about. When we give out our data, it's just out there to some extent, one place or the other, okay? So it's always a good idea that when you know that you will be giving out some information out to people, because that's the only way to survive these days, think about walking into a registration office and they said, okay, what's your email? And you're like, oh, I don't use one.
They laugh at you.
Okay. Can we send you a text message? Oh, I don't own a mobile phone or a cell phone. I don't have one. How can we get a hold of you? Call my home phone or snail mail me. You know, think about it. I mean, like, that was norm at one point in time. And now if you go into a place and say it like this, it just feels odd. It's pretty much like a lot of the kids. I mean, like, how many of you are around 18, 20, 21? You know, some of you are, right? Now think about one of your friends says, oh, what's Facebook? I've never heard of Snapchat. What is that? Insta? What is that? You'll be like, are you for real? Where'd you come from, Mars? Were you living in a cave? So that's exactly how it is. Say it again.
If they said they didn't know what MySpace is, oh man, somebody typed in the chat. MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace, right? Nobody knows about MySpace except for MySpace. So, you know, there are norms. So of course, people want to live through those norms. So they want to give more information about themselves just to meet the standards of norm. But that information may or may not play a good role. Now, a lot of these companies, which you download the software, the antivirus software companies, are now trying to sell their services to you at different level. Okay, now that you have this service, by the way, we also offer this service. By the way, we also offer dark internet protection service. We offer data breaching service. We offer, and one more thing, some of these corporations will come back to you and say, you know what? Every time you search on Google, 2,000 sites have been tracking your clicks. So we can help you stop that, but you need to pay us X amount of dollars per month to do that. That's like, okay. So stop using Google, right? Now, you can use Brave, for example, which has some non-tracking stuff, but Google is making money, of course. Every time you do a search, they sell the data out, and that's how they make their money. And other than the ads and stuff like that. So personal data goes into the databases, and it gets used all the time. Then comes, okay, information on the internet, bulletin boards, news groups, and social networking sites. Tremendous amount of data goes out there. Now think about it. How many of us share where we are now on social media? A lot of people do. A lot of people do. What am I doing? My vacation pictures, day out in the park, a piano lesson, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, oh my God. The whole life is out there. That's how things are getting out there. And then these companies are, of course, they need money to maintain all this data. So they need to get that money from someplace. So information is out there to a lot of these sites. Then comes the privacy codes and policies, okay? So privacy policies or privacy codes are an organization's guidelines for protecting the privacy of its customers, clients, and employees. And a lot of these major companies, they put you in a place where you will be receiving information until you opt out. So the opt-out model of informed consent permits the company to collect personal information until you say do not. And most of those 6.5 font size disclaimer agreement that none of us read and we hit acknowledge to, they have those wordings in there, which are opt-out models. And they know majority of the people will not. So then we're going to give them enough time to collect information and distribute and share it. Then the privacy advocates prefer the opt-in model, where the customer is not to permit the company to collect until, you know, the customer says, yes, you can. But very few will work in opt-in model. Most of them are opt-out model companies out there. So here comes another table for you to read, which is on page 84. Table 3.2, privacy policy guidelines, a sampler, data collection, data accuracy, data confidentiality. 2-3 minutes, read through that, and then we will move on to the next item. Okay, so now let's look at the international aspects of privacy. The last item that it talks about here, that as the number of online users has increased globally, governments throughout the world have enacted a large number of inconsistent privacy and security laws. This highly complex global legal framework is creating regularity problems for companies. Approximately 50 countries have some form of data protection laws. Many of these laws conflict with those of other countries, or they require specific security measures. Other countries have no privacy laws at all. As a result, some of the companies that we work with in the US, when they went to Europe, what did they have to face? Lawsuits. For that reason, that they have some different norms. So in 2018, the General Data Protection Regulation, the world's strongest data protection laws, went into effect in the European Union. Okay. So the GDPR modernized laws to protect the personal information of individuals because previous data protection laws across Europe could not keep pace with rapid technological changes. As a result, they were the one who enforced those throughout several multinational companies. And that's where the problem started. Okay, so GDPR applies to data controllers, which are the organizations that have relationships with data subjects, and data processors, which are organizations that work for data controllers and that process personal data on the controller's behalf. Then a few things for you to look at. The GDPR also covers individuals' rights, which include the following. So go and read these 5 bullet points. Then also read the GDPR provides the ability for regulators to find businesses. Read these 3 points and then the next 3. So read all the bullet points with the paragraphs in between. Okay, guys. So with this, the chapter summary talks about Describing ethics. It's free. It's 3 fundamental tenets and the 4 categories of ethical issues related to IT. That's one thing the chapter talks about. It also talks about ethics refers to the principles of right and wrong that individuals use to make choices that guide their behavior. Then the 3 tenets, it talks about a responsibility, accountability, and liability. And it talks about the major ethical issues related to IT, which includes privacy, accuracy, property, which is including the intellectual property, and access to information. And then moves on to privacy, where it discusses the potential threats to the privacy of the data stored in each of the 3 places that store personal data. Privacy is the right to be left alone and to be free of unreasonable personal intrusions. Threats to privacy include advances in information technology, electronic surveillance, personal information in databases, internet bulletin boards, news groups, and social networking sites. The privacy threat in internet bulletin boards, news groups, and social networking sites is that you might post too much personal information that many unknown people can see. With that, towards the end of the class, what I would like you guys to do is scroll down to the closing case of the chapter. Okay, the closing case of the chapter is, for me, it's page number 90. I don't know what it is for you. Okay, go ahead and read this. And then I am posting the question in the chat, which you will again discuss in your breakout rooms, but this time, different breakout rooms. Just give me a minute. While you read it, I'll post it, and then I'll create the breakout rooms. So I'm opening the rooms for you guys to discuss that in your group and be back in 10 minutes. So how was the discussion?
I mean, there's pros and cons, so
Of course, there is no one answer. I mean, the reason I asked you guys to get in groups and to discuss this so that, you're not sitting there and snoring and without me knowing that you're snoring.
I mean, I guess it's similar to the whole Google thing. I don't know if I would. They're not as big as Google, but it's still, there still has to be some sort of responsibility to the operators of the cameras who are teaching them what it needs, what they want it to learn.
Absolutely. I mean, on their end, they have established this AI board, which will assist them with the governance with the technology. They didn't have anything in place to that level. So that's their way of getting themselves out of the trouble. But as far as the accountability is concerned, we have two parties here, which are held accountable here, the Exxon and their users, which is the police department. And then, they both equally share the responsibility, as Exxon is accountable to research the design of the product and the potential consequences, and to provide the transparency of whatever data they're collecting. And the police department is to be held accountable for their decisions on the use of this, because this is, as some of the activists said, that it's only a one-sided story. It just tells the story from the side of the police. And as far as the liability is concerned, so individuals will likely not be able to provide how damages were done to them if their privacy is violated, as there's a lack of understanding with how technology works, creating an unfair advantage to the maker of such solutions compared to the parties that might wish to defend themselves. So there are, of course, pros and cons coming from, both sides. Okay.
Doesn't the non-disclosure agreements mean that they don't have to tell the public what it is that they are collecting or using it for?
Yep. So again, it's just a lot of ifs.
And my big issue is the fact that just AI should not be involved with law at all. I mean, we can't develop cars that are self-driving, and if you get that involved with law, you're just opening up a whole can of worms at that point.
Absolutely. That could be another thing, because AI is only as smart as you create it, right?
See, I almost want to say in some extent disagree with that. And the only reason I'd say that is because it can be used as a tool to help find information, but not make the judgments in and of itself.
I agree. That's what I was just thinking, but I couldn't think of how to put in words, but you put into words perfectly.
Yeah. So it should be a tool to help you solve the problem, but not to solely rely on it to be the only source. Okay. So, yeah, there was a movie, right? iRobot.
yes.
And what was that movie where they had Minority Report? You guys remember that? 20 years ago?
Yeah, that was with Tom Cruise.
Yes, yes, he was cruising through that. So, yep. That was
I mean,
Tom.
in terms of like the outside company teaming up with the police, I mean, it's good because then if the police was running a whole thing where they could delete footage on their own, much cops would get away with a lot of stuff. So it's good that they would have an outside party with all these information just in case they would need it. I mean, yeah, you have to train the technology to do what you would like them to do, but I mean, a pro would be like, yeah, if a cop did something wrong, or even if whoever they were after did something wrong, you would have footage to see it and or
Absolutely.
pursue it. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So guys, as we are coming to the close of the class today, there are two things I want to talk about. Number one, I was looking at the grade book and some people have not done anything from week 1 also. Not good. Okay, it's not good. Week 1 stuff was due last week and some people have not yet started on it and have not even approached me that as to why they are not turning in anything. So you have like, including this week, you now have 3 weeks worth of stuff to be done. So I will recommend that you send me an email. Otherwise, I would have to start putting in zeros for all unheard because the item is already past due. It's been over a week. So that's why I gave a little bit more time to week 1 stuff, maybe thinking people are still in the transition process of getting a book or so. But when you don't hear from, and then there's been like a week over, then I'm starting to get a little concerned that maybe you're taking things not in the correct priority. So again, for this week, you have a reading. Of course, we read most of the chapter, but still. And that's why I shortened this week's assignment, hoping that those who are falling short could utilize this time to catch up. So I'm only giving you 1 question with 2 parts, as opposed to giving you like 3-4 questions. And the quiz is exactly the same as it's every week. 1 question, chapter summary, 100 to 200 words. So hopefully, in good trust, when I open this grade book next week, I wouldn't have to be disheartened that people have not turned in the stuff. So again, guys, please get on top of it. All classes are important, and please communicate with me, as some people communicated with me this week that they need a little bit more time on assignment number 2. So I extended the assignment 2 from unit 2 till the end of Sunday, midnight, because they communicated. I was able to do that for them. But if you don't communicate, I wouldn't know what's going on. So anyway, I'll see some of you tomorrow, and I'll see some of you next week. Till then,
have a good night.
you too. Take care.
So you said, so unit 2 is now due on Sunday instead of today.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. It's gonna get done. You don't get done.
Quick question. I thought it was due today at like 11:59. Is that true?
That's when it was originally
Originally
due,
due?
but with
Okay.
with students emailing me and letting me know that they need a little
Okay.
bit more time. So I
Okay.
extended it till Sunday.
Okay. I mean,
If
I'm-
you're done, well and good.
Yeah,
If you
I'm
are
just
not
gonna-
done, then you have 3 additional days to catch up.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right,
Have a
thank
good
you.
night.
You too.
you
Thank you,
too.
Angela. Thank you.
I'll make it. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Am I caught up? Because I'm trying to look through my stuff right now and see if I have anything to do.
See, on the My Grades link under units, click on, and look under assignment 1, chapter 1. If you have a golden circle, that means you did turn it in. For
Okay, I
the
did.
quiz, you should see the same golden circle.
I
And
turned in the quiz. I got one wrong, I think. on the
quiz, you got one wrong.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
you
true or
got one?
false. So I got 80 on that, 80 out of 100.
Maybe for a different class, not for this one, because there isn't.
Oh, my bad. I think I'm in other class. Hold on.
Yeah. I mean, like this, it was just a question to answer about the summary of the chapter. And Ismail, to answer your question, by this weekend, you should be able to see them done, or maybe by tomorrow.
Yeah, I got all of my stuff done. I believe. Yep. I got three yellow circles over all of mine. You haven't checked them yet, so maybe. You'll.
Yeah.
Okay.
And okay, let's see. Tristan. Okay, Tristan, hold on a second. Let me. Oh, okay, because you named me under somebody else, it was Mr. Raider Gaming. Okay.
You have a good night then, sir.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. That's okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so Tristan, we will be going over